the Trainiac community. We have a couple of fun announcements beyond just our usual Newsday stuff, and as always, full links to everything we talk about will be in the description below. I'm excited, let's get into it. We got a self-promoting shirt. First little bit of news is that our pal Sarah Crowley, the 2017 third place finisher in Kona, who arguably in 2017 had one of the best seasons in triathlon and has been on the podcast, started recommitting to her YouTube channel now. We helped Sarah get her followers up earlier last year, but she is recommitted, hired a videographer to do regular content. She put out her first video talking about kind of her history in triathlon, coming up all the way from where she started when she was learning how to swim and all the way to today. It's a really nice video. Go check it out in the description below. Congratulations, Sarah. Keep it up. Next, less good news, a little bit disappointing, is that after coming back from being canceled, the Wildflower Triathlon Festival announced again that they are canceled for 2019. They announced this on their Facebook page, said that they will be back in 2020, and that athletes who were registered for 2019 have the option to get a refund or get priority entry into next season. Now, this is very unfortunate because this has been one of the most long-standing, most popular races out there on the triathlon circuit, and it's also one of the most difficult, so people love to hate it. We hope you come back, Wildflower. In racing news, the ITU short course athletes are getting underway, and they did so with the Discovery World Triathlon in Cape Town. It was a sprint distance race that was won on the women's side by Ai Ueda, and the men's side was won by Alex Lee. Now, quite often, these early season sprint distance races before we get onto the World Triathlon Series events, they don't always generate the most top-notch caliber athletes out there, but what's up, Trainiacs? We're back. Welcome to the first Triathlon Newsday Tuesday in a month and a half. Despite me being away, the world of triathlon continued on. Things happened in today's Triathlon Newsday Tuesday. New pro triathlon YouTube channels got started. Iconic races get canceled, and There were actually a couple of races. I had to dig deep for them, but they happened. What's up, Trainiacs? Welcome to this week's Triathlon News Day Tuesday, where every single Tuesday, as long as I'm not training and it's not the holidays, and there is something to talk about, we talk about what's been going on in the triathlon world. Make sure you stick around to the end where we share everyone's favorite part of Triathlon News Day. That is a story from the Trainiac community. We have a couple of fun announcements beyond just our usual News Day stuff, and as always, full links to everything we talk about will be in the description below. I'm excited, let's get into it. We got a self-promoting shirt. First little bit of news is that our pal Sarah Crowley, the 2017 third place finisher in Kona, who arguably in 2017 had one of the best seasons in triathlon and has been on the podcast, started recommitting to her YouTube channel now. We helped Sarah get her followers up earlier last year, but she has recommitted, hired a videographer to do regular content. She put out her first video talking about kind of her history in triathlon, coming up all the way from where she started when she was learning how to swim and all the way to today. It's a really nice video. Go check it out in the description below. Congratulations, Sarah. Keep it up. Next, less good news, a little bit disappointing, is that after coming back from being canceled, the Wildflower Triathlon Festival announced again that they are canceled for 2019. They announced this on their Facebook page, said that they will be back in 2020, and that athletes who were registered for 2019 have the option to get a refund or get priority entry into next season. Now, this is very unfortunate because this has been one of the most long-standing, most popular races out there on the triathlon circuit, and it's also one of the most difficult, so people love to hate it. We hope you come back, Wildflower. In racing news, the ITU short course athletes are getting underway, and they did so with the Discovery World Triathlon in Cape Town. It was a sprint distance race that was won on the women's side by Ai Ueda, and the men's side was won by Alex Lee. Now, quite often, these early season sprint distance races before we get onto the World Triathlon Series events, they don't always generate the most top-notch caliber athletes out there, but I and Alex ended up beating some really good competition out there. Rachel Clammer was in the women's side and Henry Schumann was on the men's side. So good on you to I and Alex. Impressive stuff. Fast times. And in Ironman racing, it's been very, very quiet. There's not a lot to choose from over the course of January, but Ironman Dubai happened about a week and a half ago now. It was won on the men's side by Adam Bowden in 3:40.11, while the women's side was won by Holly Lawrence in, get this, 4 hours, 4 seconds. Now, it's very common that we see times in the 3:40s for the men's races, but seeing something flirting with 4 hours, especially with Holly Lawrence having been coming back and forth a little bit in and out of injuries, good on you for coming back. That's an amazing time. Trainiac clap. Now, 2 fun bits of self-promotion beyond just Team Trainiac being live at teamtrainiac.com. Get yourself a free 14-day trial, try it out. The Scody Trainiac Kit shop is once again open just for the next week. We're doing a run of all the Trainiac gear. I don't make a dime off of you buying this. We've just set it up and every few months open it up. We now have the addition of the much requested Trainiac trucker hats. They look okay. We've also got some Trainiac shorts, Trainiac kits, and people that got in on the last order of Trainiac gear, they dig it. It looks good. Also, the Triathlon Terran podcast is still up and running, even though I was traveling over all of January. We've had some really good podcasts out there. Some one-on-one, just me and you talking about training. Patrick Langa, 2-time Ironman world champion, was on, had great feedback about that. And later tonight, we are going to interview Martin Gibala, professor and author of the 1-Minute Workout, which has studied the effectiveness of high-intensity interval training. A shorter workout is just 10 minutes a few times a week, being as effective as 50 minutes 3 times a week. So we're going to talk to him about that because it's a lot of what we have included in the training with Team Trainiac. Now, on to everyone's fart. You heard that?
Yeah, because you screamed fart.
I did. On to everyone's favorite part of Triathlon News Day. That's the story from the Trainiac community, and this story comes to us from Anya and Menandi, 2 South Africans living in Taiwan. A little over a year ago, I came home one day and I asked my wife what she thinks of the idea of doing a triathlon. I have no clear recollection of why I felt the urge to suddenly and totally out of the blue do something that I've never done before or showed much interest in the past. But she said, yes, why not? Off the bat, we entered ourselves into an Olympic distance race and washed the dust off our hybrid bikes. Neither of us have ever done any endurance training, and we both come from a netball, sport similar to basketball, background. So we are truly the definition of beginners. We took baby steps in all 3 disciplines and tried to learn as much as possible over the internet and local triathlon groups. 5 months later, we completed our Olympic triathlon with just a few minutes before the cutoff time to spare. It wasn't pretty, and the 4 hours included a lot of swearing and, yes, crying. But somehow we managed to drag ourselves over that finish line, and that's where the love of this sport really manifested itself. We've had endless conversations about why we're suddenly shaping and planning our lives to fit in these new training schedules and picking up extra work to save for new bikes, and why we're waking up in the morning with a newfound purpose. Because from an objective perspective, it really doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Why are we making all of these sacrifices for something that will always just be a hobby? We're still trying to find the answer to that, but we think that it boils down to finding out that you're capable of doing so much more with your body than just work, eat, and sleep. Surprising yourself and overcoming boundaries and labels that you've set for yourself is so freeing. Getting through tough training sessions and completing races that you once thought were crazy and impossible gives you a sense of pride and self-worth that is hard to explain. We're just at the beginning of our lives as triathletes, but we are already so grateful for what the sport has taught us. And we are so overwhelmed by the huge sense of community among triathletes. In a world of hate and animosity, it's refreshing to be a part of something that drives and inspires you to be your best self. Onwards and upwards, dedicated Trainiacs, Anya and Menandi. Normally, I like to add my 2 cents about that, but that's it. Good on you. Congratulations to all Trainiacs out there that have gone through their first season of triathlon, and if you are just about to enter your first season of triathlon, thank you for joining us here and good luck to you. Hopefully we can help. That's it for Triathlon News Day Tuesday. If you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below, and if you are subscribed, send in those emails to Taryn@triathlontaryn.com to get your story shared here on Newsday. Later, Trainiacs. I yelled fart. Morning, Trainiacs. We have a big swim today. Let me show you. Look at this. Just reads like a novel. That's one swim. After we go through that, I want to show you the new goggles that I'm going to use for majority of. These goggles right here are the Magic 5 goggles, which are custom molded to your face and just won a Best Innovation Product Award, something like that. Let me finish this swim and we'll talk about these back home. They're pretty cool, look at them. Focus, focus, focus. No focus. It'll focus back at home. Cow! 4,300 yards with two interesting, and by interesting I mean brutal, new things that were introduced there. One, you know how I do snorkel band pull? Snorkel, band around the ankles, pull buoy in between the legs? We'll try that without the pull buoy. It's like snorkel band drown. Did not look good, I'm sure. I bet you that worried some of the lifeguards. And then the other thing is that Coach Jerry, Tower 26, he said that because I've got short arms, one of the worst things that I can do is have a long catch-up style stroke. And one of the best things that I can do is have a really quick turnover. So I took out the tempo trainer and I did a whole bunch of that set with the tempo trainer, gradually increasing the tempo, the strokes per minute, ending at, take a guess, 100 strokes per minute. Now I was able to hold 100 strokes per minute for a grand total of 10 strokes. Elite open water swimmers, they hold that for 10 kilometers. Yeah. All right, let's get home. Talk about these The Magic 5 custom fitted goggles. In focus. Goggles, 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 goggles. All right, so these gorgeous little devils are the Magic 5 custom fitted goggles. How this works is you download the Magic 5 app, you scan your face just like if you were setting up like the security to get into your iPhone, and it takes that scan, takes from a series of pre-made goggles, but then gets you 100% customized to you gasket. So that squishy part that goes onto your eyes, that part, that is 100% customized to your face. That's the part that actually makes a difference between a good fitting goggle and a poorly fitting goggle. Now, these babies just won at the end of January 2019 the ISPO, well not the, but one of the ISPO awards for best product innovations in sports over the past year. And this is one of the biggest conventions with, I think, 2,500 exhibitors apparently, and like, I get it. These are pretty cool. I was very skeptical that it would make a difference because I've always just I've found that my eyes have a really tough time finding good goggles. So I have actually tried really big goggles, really small goggles, and what I've found to work more consistently than not is the smaller the goggle, the better. So either a Swedish goggle or a socket rocket goggle, which is a Swedish goggle with just a little bit of rubber here. And the more I went to like bigger and bigger goggles, the more I had to press those goggles down into my face, and the more uncomfortable it was. And what I was racing in last year was these Roca goggles that are just huge. Now, why would I do that if the bigger goggles end up requiring them to be really tight to suction down onto my face? Well, the reason for that is that you want to have a whole bunch of viewing area so that as you are sighting and trying to see buoys and get a sense of where you are in the course, you can see out the top, out the side. You can really get a good sense of where you are on the course. So it's kind of like a necessary evil to have these big goggles so that you can get good visibility. But the thing about these are that in order to make them fit really well, you got to smash them down into your face, or they don't fit really well because there's a lot of gasket here that ends up having to suction onto your face. And then you get a fair bit of drag on your face. With these, however, they are basically the size of Swedish goggles. Check this out. They sit just perfectly inside your eye socket, so there's no drag whatsoever there. And actually looking at this now, just seconds after putting these babies on, these actually have more viewing area than these. So you get the benefit of not having to suction it down tremendously to your face so that it's so tight it's uncomfortable. You don't have that little bit of drag, and you've got really good visibility. I like them. I'm a big fan. As far as performance goes, they do what they're supposed to. You don't have to suction them down really tightly. You've got a good viewing area. They've been reliable, that all I have had to do is put these on, tighten them up just slightly, change the nose bridge there to select the proper nose bridge in all of the options that come out. That is one thing that I have noticed that you should be aware of with these goggles, that this does come undone occasionally. So if you find a nose bridge that you like, maybe just snap it in, go for a few swims, make sure that it's the one that you like, and then just put a little dab of crazy glue or something like that in there. As far as diving into the water, or if I'm in a race, I would probably tighten these up a little bit more just to make sure that they've got that little bit of extra suction. But you saw me dive this morning. I hadn't tightened these at all beforehand and didn't come off. And of course they have the mirrored goggles that are really good for when there's glare on the water. They've got the black goggles for if it's just bright out, but you don't want them mirrored. They have here the blue, go on the website. They've got all the orange colors. They've got the smoke colors. So any condition goggle that you want, that you need to be prepared for, you can get. Now, why is not everyone switching over to these immediately? It's because of the cost. So these on average are in the low $70 range. These on average somewhere around $30. But I'm just looking now and that price actually includes shipping. Not bad. So the Magic 5 goggles are, yeah, a little bit more expensive, but let's put it into some context here. It's swim gear. Swim gear is relatively very cheap. I know every single one of you out there that has Di2 on your bike has probably spent about $80 on a single Di2 cable. So to say that these are so expensive that you can't buy them, that's not really realistic. To say that they are more expensive than the alternative, sure. But if you are somebody that wants what I think is one of the best goggles that you can get, or you're somebody that's had a tough time getting the goggles to actually suction to your face comfortably, give these a try. Here's a bonus. If you go to a link in the description below to the Magic 5's website and you use the coupon code Taryn, you can get 20% off. So instead of $70, it's going to be somewhere around $54, $55. And in that case, you're getting a really, really good goggle that I think has a lot of the features of goggles out there that they come close, but none of them hits every single one of those goggle requirements where it's comfortable, it doesn't provide a lot of drag, has a huge viewing angle. Until now, this really kind of didn't exist. So there you go, Trainiacs. Try out the Magic 5 goggle. Link is in the description below. Use the coupon code Taryn to get yourself 20% off. And I don't want to go outside. It's so snowy. We got about 1.5 feet of snow while I was traveling. Brutal. Later. What's up, Trainiacs? We're back. Welcome to the first triathlon.
And I thought, okay, well, I'll make my own shoes. Why not?
This is the moment where I'm just like, how do you even begin to start with the shoe? Right, tech lovers, we're lucky today because we're joined by Adam Hansen of Lotto Soudal, and well, he's a guy who I've not stalked specifically, but I'd be really interested in his career, particularly because he's an absolute tech lover, and well, a big thanks to him because, well, you're about to get ready to go on the team presentation here at the Tour Down Under, aren't you? So I don't want to keep you too long, but I do in a way because I want to pick your brains about so many things. So I've got a few questions here, but firstly, what's your background in cycling for everybody watching?
Well, in sport-wise, I did a lot of basketball, running, triathlons, duathlons, mountain biking, and then, I wasn't very good at cycling in the triathlon scene, so I tried a year of cycling in Austria to improve my bike leg, and then from there, that's how I sort of came into the cycling side.
Yeah. Now, were you always into sort of technology, or I guess a crude way of saying it is like do it yourself or DIY, because when we look at some of the things which you've done in the past, you know, you're a great craftsman. Was that always something which you were sort of doing before you were cycling, or did you always have a keen interest in it?
Yeah, well, I used to love pulling things apart, seeing how things work.
I bet your parents, I bet they hated it.
Well, in the end they liked it because I fixed everything around the house. So that was good. But I was into software, so I was always, I was a programmer before I was a cyclist, and I did a lot of valuation software. I used to work for Heritage White Property Valuers in Australia. And then from that I went into also real estate and renovations. I was buying flats, renovating them, and I did all the plastering, painting, wood floors, everything myself on that side. So as a do-it-yourself person, I was always into things like that.
Yeah. And then you managed to, I guess, carry that over into cycling because, well, on Weight Weenies, a forum, you know, that's where I first sort of heard about you, really, when I was reading your posts and everything like that. And then you were able to just like transfer your love, I guess, for handiwork into actually making your bike, well, unique to you, let's say.
Oh, for sure. Like back in the Weight Weenie days where, you know, we could do anything, use any bike equipment you want, and the goal was to have the lightest bike you could get. Yeah. And I remember once I drilled out a Dura rear derailleur, just put drill holes all through it. Even
There's people at home crying now.
And I'd get the chain rings, I'd drill them out also, anything to save weight, use titanium bolts. Put drill holes all through it.
The fastest a group of cyclists can go is when riding in a pace line. It's the best way to combine your efforts to slice through the wind as fast as possible.
Now, you might not call it that though. You might call it through and off, or bit and bit, or a chain gang perhaps. But whatever, the principles remain the same. This is how to go as fast as possible.
To ride in a pace line, you want to be on flat or rolling roads where the speed is high, and you're going to need at least 4 of you, although the more the merrier.
The idea of a pace line is that you spend a short time on the front of the group pushing into the wind and then move to the back, seeking shelter whilst waiting for your turn again. This means that when you are on the front, you can ride much, much harder than you would on your own because you know you have time to recover after. And the more riders there are, therefore, the more recovery you will get.
There are 2 basic kinds of pace line. The single pace line is a single line of riders where you spend 10 to 20 seconds on the front before peeling off, slowing down a fraction and drifting to the back where you take up your place in line again.
Now this is probably the fastest way to do it. If you watch a team time trial in a race, this is what they're going to be doing. And it's really efficient because you actually spend less time changing riders, which you'll quickly find is actually a really demanding bit. And it's also good because you can very easily balance out the different abilities within your group. So stronger riders can have longer turns on the front, and weaker riders can do shorter ones.
When you are going uphill and on the front, it can be a good idea to ease off a bit. That's to factor in that the riders behind you are still sheltered from the wind. They're having to work quite hard to ride uphill, so they're not getting the usual recovery.
In terms of judging how long your turn on the front should be, you should use other riders as a little bit of a gauge. You don't want to do too much more than your fair share, and you certainly don't want to go too hard and fall into that trap of then not being able to get back onto the back and get dropped. That is not good for you, clearly, but then nor is it good for the rest of the group. Losing even a weak rider will mean less recovery from everyone else, but losing a strong but over-eager rider is going to be a hammer blow.
And do make sure you leave a bit in the tank for that effort to get on the back of the line. When training team time trials, the pros always emphasise that your effort is not over until you're back safely on the pace line. Then you have the double pace line, so called because you have two lines of riders. One faster, moving forwards, and then a slightly slower line, which is moving backwards relative to the fast line. Your time on the front is just long enough to move from the fast line to the slow line before drifting to the back again. You can be sure you will get shouted at if you do surge. The fastest. You can be sure you will get shouted at if you do surge. However, I agree, it is sometimes hard not to get carried away on the front. So one good tip is to keep half an eye on your speed to check you're not accelerating when you get to the front. With practice, you'll be able to do this entirely on feel, even in undulating terrain.
Now, as soon as you're clear of the rider in front, you can start to move across. The tighter you keep things, the more shelter everyone gets, and therefore the faster you will go. But it's not essential to bang your mate's handlebars with your ass as you go through, even if you have a big one. And then it's simply a case of gently easing off, because as you've seen, you don't have to wait long before your shelter comes around. That's so long as you haven't surged on the front. No surging.
get to the back of the line and move across, it can be a good idea to tell the next rider that you were last, so they know to start accelerating. Now, in a well-drilled group, it's not necessary, but it doesn't cost anything, and it can help to keep the group moving nice and smoothly. Up.
A simple up is literally all it needs, just to let that last rider know that the back of the group is approaching, up, and they can accelerate and jump back in. If the last rider doesn't switch over to the other line, it all goes wrong. The string unravels and you end up on the front. Now in races, this can happen as riders try and sneakily hide and save their energy. There are ways for dealing with sneaks, but in the short term, in order to restart it, the rider in second position needs to do an extra turn and accelerate past rider 1, then move across, effectively kick-starting the pace line all over again. Another way it can go wrong is if the rider coming from the faster line stays on the front too long and doesn't pull over to the slower line until too late. Now that leaves the rider who pulled over just before, who's now going slower, remember, stuck in the wind for much longer than they expected. And it creates a gap in the slower line between them and the show-off rider that eventually pulls over late. Now, it might not sound like much, but the extra effort for that gapped rider can make a big difference, especially if they're riding at their limit. In fact, it can be a sneaky way to tire out other riders in the breakaway in a race to give you a better chance of beating them all at the end. So there are a few hints and tips on how to make fast group riding work for you and those you're riding with, be they friends or rivals. Just remember that golden rule: try to keep something in reserve to make sure you don't get dropped. Even the strongest riders can come unstuck by trying to do too much for a group.
Hey everybody, I'm Daniel Radcliffe and I'm here to do a wired autocomplete interview. Do I tear this off? Yeah, okay. What is Daniel Radcliffe's favourite Harry Potter? I mean, I love the last one, but I also really love the fifth, which is not a lot of people's favourite, I kind of realise. I love it because of the relationship of Harry and Sirius, and you get a lot of Gary Oldman in that movie. That was my favourite one, probably to film as well. We had a really, really good time making that one. So 5 or 7 part 2. What country is Daniel Radcliffe from? Oh!
Welcome to Pro to Joe, where pro cyclists analyze ride files to make you faster. I've got pro rider Pete Morris from Team Cliffbar with me.
Hey guys.
And I'm Nate Pearson from Trainer Road. And I am a Cat 4 racer, but in this race, I'm in a 35 plus 1, 2, 3, 4 race at Cal Aggie. And we're going to jump in pretty far into this race, maybe 2/3, to see how it rides. So this is a much faster race than what I had earlier in the day, which is a Cat 4, which you can click on something above to go view that race.
Yeah, and this one turned out to be a little easier on you, right?
Yeah, actually, it's weird. I put out less power in the 1, 2, 3, 4 than the 4 race. But it was faster. Why is that?
You know, it's just that smoothness. The race is less surgy, and when it's on more often, you actually pedal less hard. So it's kind of the opposite of the race, the way you were trying to race the 4 race.
Yeah, and if you watch right now a breakaway's already been established. I'm trying to move up here on the left. And in the previous races I could do that, but boom, not this race.
Yeah.
Right? It's different. So people shut that down on every time.
Yeah, and that's just experience. People, when the more races you do, the more you realize you can use the whole course all the time. And so now you had people actually fighting you for that lane you had so well earlier.
Right now too, I'm almost panicking because there's a break up the field. I really want to get up the break. I thought I want points to upgrade, and I thought that I would get points for any like not for overall placement, but only if I beat the like any 3s or any 4s that I beat.
Yeah, and that's the scored race together scored separately logic, that if you beat all the other 4s, you get to technically count yourself as first place out of all the 4s in the 1, 2, 3, 4 race.
But this one was not, it didn't have the asterisk on the flyer. So yeah.
Yeah, but at least you knew you had to make it to the break, right?
Yeah, so right now, like I'm at the pretty far in the back of the field. It's strung out. There is a breakaway so far ahead you can't see them, but here it fans out.
And you can see some guys going up on the left, starting a break or starting a chase group, and the front of the field just sits up. So what do you do?
Yeah, I bridge up, right? And it was key. I think this is why the break happened, is it was slowing down, and if I would have continued to slow down, I wouldn't have been close enough to make this.
Yep, exactly.
So I was pushing. I kept the power on as they slowed down, and then these people attacked, which is a good time to attack, right?
Yeah, and exactly. If you can run right into the back of a chase group or a breakaway, they'd only had to work for about 20 seconds to get up to this group, and that's pretty ideal. And you almost can't even see the group, the field, the main field.
And it was key. I think this is why the break happened, is it was slowing down, and if I would have continued to slow down, I wouldn't have been close enough to make this.
Yep, exactly.
So I was pushing. I kept the power on as they slowed down, and then these people attacked, which is a good time to attack, right?
Yeah, and exactly. If you can run right into the back of a chase group or a breakaway, they'd only had to work for about 20 seconds to get up to this group, and that's pretty ideal. And you almost can't even see the group, the field, the main field anymore.
And then we take this corner so much faster. We took it 24 miles per hour. At the last video we did, we were taking that thing at 15 miles per hour on the Cat 4.
Yep. And you can see right there in between the two corners, Nate didn't have to jump up to 500 or 600 or 800 watts in between, because he was already going fast. So then you just pedal smoothly in between the two corners.
Mm-hmm. So I'm in the breakaway right now, and I'm just like, we have to make it. Because if I get to the break up the road, which you can kind of see them right now, I think I'm going to get points, which yeah. You'll see in this what my strategy is like, and it wasn't true.
But it did, knowing that you had to make the break no matter what is a good philosophy to have. If you know there is going to be a breakaway, and in a lot of the Masters races there are, knowing you have to make the breakaway no matter what, and then you can kind of reset the race from there.
So this guy in front, I feel like he's pulling too much, right? We're all in different teams. He's been on the front for like half a lap.
And so it is possible that he didn't look back and just didn't realize that he was towing a bunch of people with him. He could also just have a lot of fitness and not worry.
He's a beast. Like, I just yelled rotate, and then so the guy with the no socks, he comes to the front. His name's Josh, and people in front of me or before the race told me that he's an incredible sprinter.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy slots back in on second.
Well, and Josh, the sprinter, did kind of do a hard pull, which is not it doesn't help the breakaway at all. So I think he thought that you guys possibly weren't going to catch, which is also what you sort of thought. So rather than miss the opportunity of following a wheel up to the breakaway, it's easier to slot back in and know you're going to work a little harder, but you guaranteed not to miss the bridge.
Because he might get popped off. So here I attack him because they're close and we're kind of slowing down, and that guy's tired in front of me, and I'm thinking, I don't want Josh the sprinter in the group too. Also, it doesn't matter what place I get. Well, that's what I thought. But in general, I don't want to miss this.
Yeah, and seeing them so close, this is also, Nate also did a good job of picking the right time on the course to make the bridge. Sort of he didn't have an option because that's how his chase group was coming along, but going into the corner is the best place, or going on that back stretch, it's a little slower, and then going into the corner is the best time to make your bridge. So if you look back, you gapped the chase group by quite a bit, and made it across really quickly in kind of a short period of time.
Then right here, I'm like, guys, slow down. Slow down, please.
And it's always this kind of last 20 feet that's the hardest to get across to a breakaway, especially an established one, because they're always working and they re-accelerate out of all the turns. So you do a good job of slotting back up. This is kind of the easiest part of the whole course right here, right? Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I was pushing so hard, but I should have slotted behind this guy's wheel earlier. Because I was like trying to fight.
Pretty good.
Not that good though. It just takes it so much faster than me.
So I wonder, it would
I take it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I think he's just pedaling just a quarter second longer, and that's a really good mantra to live by. Pedal 1/4 second longer into a corner than you. It would be interesting to see. I think he's just pedaling one, and it does look like there's two sets of two teammates in there, at least as far as I can tell. But you made it across. You also sort of get a free pass for a while since you bridged. So let's see.
Do people not expect me to pull right away?
Not right away, and that's something you should kind of, unless your brake is in danger of being caught and you have the ability to push the pace, always kind of you don't raise your hand, but you just say, give me a half a lap, or give me a little bit longer, and I will pull through. I will work, but give me another half a lap of rest, and then I'm going to be more beneficial to the breakaway. So, but you just started slotting right through them.
I know, but see, I'm feeling better. Look at my heart rate; it's 166, and when I did that bridge, it was like 181. And I believe on this weekend, my high was 197.
So you're feeling okay then?
Yeah.
Let's see how you take the corner. Pretty good.
Not that good though. It just takes it so much faster than me.
So I wonder, it would be.
I take it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I think he's just pedaling just a quarter second longer, and that's a really good mantra to live by. Pedal 1/4 second longer into a corner than you think you need to. You'll get another quarter mile an hour or half a mile an hour out of the corner, which will be the difference between getting that gap between the rider in front of you and having to work harder moving out of it.
So here I did a bad job. I caused a field split with my pole, and I do this all the time. I ramp it up too quickly at the beginning.
Yep.
And look at what happens though. I slot back at 4 because there's that gap.
And then you get gapped again in your little corner.
I didn't get gapped here, but I want to be at the back of the rotation and be rested.
Yep.
But I'm going to be doing more work.
So it's a problem that a lot of newer riders have, and it's not. It's harder to put into practice than you would think. You really want to ease into the throttle when you're pulling in a group. So you don't jump right up to 500 or 6 or all out. You kind of roll onto the gas, so you go 60, 70, 80, 90% over the first 10 seconds of your pull. Then you hold 10 seconds at that 90 or 100%, and then you slot off. And that makes it so much easier for everybody else in the breakaway, because then there's no increase in pace and you don't have to re-accelerate inside the group. So here's your pull at 450, 400. So,
I think I'm tight gap anybody.
Yeah,
there's a gap there again.
Yeah, so what that is if Nate would have started his pull at 300 for a couple seconds, then 350 for a couple seconds, and then 400 for a couple seconds, there wouldn't have been any gaps.
And now so the guy behind me, I saw him, he did like a little hand thing, come on in.
Yep.
And now I'm second again, and part of me is like, I know what I was thinking that, now watching the video, I know what's happening, but I was thinking that they were like messing with me.
Yeah.
Like, because they know I'm not part of these teams and I'm new, and they just like
yeah.
oh yeah, go ahead, take your pull. So I actually didn't want to do another pull there because I was gonna be too tired.
Yeah, and that's the problem is it doesn't feel like it's been that hard to you, but imagine that same acceleration you just did, everybody else had to do also. So that's why you get pushed. And if you're an experienced, see, that was pretty good. You can tell by the gap behind you. The guy didn't quite stay on your wheel, which means you took the corner just fast enough.
And these are Cat 1 riders that I'm with.
Yeah.
I'm the only Cat 4 in this breakaway. I can tell we look different, Cat 4 riders, than Cat 1 riders.
Right. But you are shutting down this gap. And were you doing that because there was teammates back? I guess you thought as long as you made the front part.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as long as I make the front part, I win. So why not? And I'm not doing that much power.
Again, this is the easy stretch on the race course. What's interesting is you kind of got pushed to the front of the race, and then you're doing the hardest position of the whole breakaway, and they just keep you there. So the guys behind you aren't passing you because they know that you're going to be capable of shutting things down.
Yes.
And so look, they're just sitting back. They're not closing down that little bit of a gap, and they're making you do it.
This is what I did in the 4 race. Is I was so confident in my fitness that I would let other people shut down the gaps. But in this race, I'm shutting down the gaps. So I should have kind of went to the side and went farther back, right?
Yeah, and especially you kind of missed your chance to opt out of the first lap of the breakaway. So now the key is you're going to have to figure out a time where you can kind of slot back into the further back in the breakaway, but it's harder to do than you'd think.
So it's like probably 3 hard efforts I did that I didn't need to do.
Yeah, they didn't have to do.
I probably could have done one, an easier 2, because I ramped them all too hard.
Yep. And so one good thing is you can see they're doing 26 or 27 or 28 miles an hour right here. Rather than doing a hard pull, make sure it's a consistent pull. So when you are in a breakaway, don't ramp up the power, just keep the speed consistent, which is, so you'll see Nate decides he's not going to actually cover this one, and then you get yelled at a little bit. You can hear it. But then again, you only let 2 guys pass you, and then you jump right back in. So you have about 8 guys behind you, right?
Yeah. See, I think that's what I should have been doing earlier.
Yeah.
Like, no, you guys do it. I don't need to do this.
Yeah, and that stretch of the course is harder to fall back on because people can go really fast there, so you can feel the pressure to stay in your position there.
This is 2 laps to go right now. So I'm thinking right now, I've got my points, my upgrade points.
You're totally fine, right?
Yeah, but I'm not.
And so were you very tired at this point in time? Really easy, you would be right there, right?
Well, you see, this is definitely a weakness of mine, are these corners, because I get gapped, and I have to do all this power every time to shut it down.
It's a lot of work over and over and over again.
So let's see if I didn't.
So you did a better job. You started pedaling earlier through that corner, and you coasted into it. So
that was great. That was like my best.
That was probably the best
race.
one. So that's like the polar opposite of what you did in your other sprint.
Yeah. The other race.
But see, they're still keeping you at the front. No one's passing you. This is 2 to go.
I'm about to get manhandled because so we're gonna cross the line here, and it's gonna be one to go. And then you can realize what the difference in tactics are.
Yep. So there's the bell. So you can see the riders behind you kind of doing a little shuffle.
Yeah, they're looking back now.
Yeah, and so they are getting the free ride since Nate's been closing all those little micro gaps. The person on the front isn't going exceptionally hard, but keeping the speed high enough that it would deter attacks.
It looks like a teammate too. Right, the guy behind me. I can't tell. Some of these kids look alike.
So the Thirsty Bear guy behind you has one teammate in front of you. So I bet.
Oh, there's 3 in front of me, yeah.
So let's see.
So I'm about to lose the whole race. We're coming up on this turn, and I'm not aggressive. And on this turn, it happened in the other races too, if you weren't in a good position coming in this turn, it was really hard to get in a good position if people are going fast. So watch, someone on the right comes in, someone on the left comes in.
They kind of box you in.
Yep. And now suddenly, within like 4 seconds, everyone's in front of me.
Yep.
Coming into this last turn.
And the reason is this is the real pivotal position piece where if you really hit the gas coming out of this corner right here, if you're off the back or not where in the position you want to be, you will not get to that position because from here on out, it's going to be fast the whole last half a lap or quarter of a lap or whatever this is.
So now I'm at the very back of it. And so just right there, right? Yeah. Like right there, I've now, and pretty much, I'm gonna say lost the race, but they're gonna pick up the speed here, and
yeah. So you're working pretty much as hard as you can just to stay.
I'm 700 watts.
Yeah, to stay in second to last.
Yeah, which is not good. And I think a teammate peels off, and you can look how strung out it is. How many bike lengths?
Yeah,
like because they.
Oh yeah,
look at
so
that. I have no chance.
No chance.
And this guy takes inside corner.
Yep. Cuts you off, and now you're doing 800 watts to just barely stay on the wheel. Oh, you're gonna pass one guy.
I've passed more than one guy. It's frustrating because they all have drafted stuff, and I kind of like come up on them a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was a long ways to go.
So yeah, really the last lap is so important to stay on it every second. Right.
Well, I got 8th in that one. I don't know. There's not much to say on that one besides be in position.
Yeah, and don't give up, right?
Yeah.
Never give up position, never give up power, never give up anything you can.
In 2014, I lost the USAC Nationals TT by 9 seconds. And that was just such a big letdown. There's always going to be somebody faster out there. That's been my experience. I'm taking that mentality into this. In 2014, I lost the USAC Nationals TT by 9 seconds. And that was just such a big letdown. There's always going to be somebody faster out there. That's been my experience. I'm taking that mentality into this year and doing everything I can to be the fastest.
You know, when you start thinking about the things that sets him apart from other riders around, there's a ton of different things, but one that I always come back to is his focus. He is an incredibly focused athlete. He doesn't need the rah-rah, he doesn't need the coaching, he doesn't need the recognition. You could tell that in his training, in his racing, especially in his time trying, it's really just a battle against himself.
I'll be honest, I thought he had it last year. I thought he had it. I was certain that he was going to win. With everything that I had witnessed and everything I had seen, I knew that Justin was going to win last year. And when he had called me and said that he got second, there was a little bit of disappointment on both parts. And I said, well, you can get it next year.
When I started thinking about this year, it was, nationals was like, okay, that's it. I got to do everything possible to make that happen. So it's just the chase, I guess. I'll say it's 50% talent, 50% just drive and doing all the right things for your body and thinking of all those percentage points. You got to put your time in on the bike, but off the bike is where I figure I can make up all the small percentage points that I need. Nutrition is like first and foremost. Always battling weight, just being a bigger guy. That's a huge issue. I eat the same thing day after day, lots of vegetables. I don't prescribe to any particular diet, just foods that fill me up and that have lots of nutrients. The luck of working with a good physical therapist here. I go see him once a month to get me all straightened out. I have nagging injuries that are just kind of bothering me. Don't keep me from training really hard, but they're just kind of nagging and I can feel them while I'm training, just kind of in the background. One of the big ticket items that I haven't perfected in previous years is flexibility. So this year I was like, you were gonna stick to that. I'm doing yoga 1 to 2 times a week. Flexibility is really good. It feels good on the bike. I'm not having the hip issues I've had before. Does massage make you faster? It doesn't make you faster, but if it makes you feel better and it relieves knots and it allows you to train harder, then that makes you faster.
I'm still playing with helmets and trying to figure out which way I want to go. I got the cask and my Giro selector. So I did 2 runs on the course. I picked a starting and a stopping point where I think the course is going to start and stop, and picked a pace that I thought I'd be able to hold for 2 intervals, and tried one with each helmet. I did 346 watts for 26 minutes and 30 some odd seconds with the cask, and then I put the Giro on and I did 341 or 342 watts, and I did it in 26:15. So 5 watts less, 15 seconds faster. There's also a little bit more wind on the way back. So as sad as it is, that's my wind tunnel, you know?
Why do I do this? Why do you put yourself through this pain? One, I'm super competitive, so I want to win. But that's, at the end of the day, that's not what makes me really enjoy the sport. The way it makes you feel, to be just incredibly fit. And there's a certain feeling that you get that when you're 4 or 5% body fat and you're just tough as nails and you can rip up a mountainside out of the saddle, just going for it, but you don't feel like you have to slow down. You're like, give me another gear, I got this. That feeling is what I strive for. This season was my best season. I won Chico time trial. I won Copperopolis in convincing fashion. That was my biggest win ever. I won a handful of time trials. I don't know what I like about it. I honestly, it's really hard. I like that I'm good at it. That's huge motivation. Having success at something is extra motivation. At Tour de Nez, I decided to race both races. I figured it's my hometown. I could probably hang out in the Masters race and just sit in for a little bit. It was actually a pretty fun race, pretty aggressive, and attacked late in the race and was able to pull off a win, so that was kind of cool. So I got my first rock. The second race was the pro race. Every Tour de Nez, breaks get away. I think people come up to the elevation and for some reason it just flogs them. So there's a handful of people that could kind of hang, and there's a lot of people that are just dying. The race started splitting apart. There was a break of 9 guys. I bridged up to that break. By the time I caught Mac's course, it was Max, myself, and Colin Daw. And that's kind of how the race was set. Before I knew it, I saw the tail end of the peloton with 5 or 6 laps to go. And I was like, oh, no, this is not what I want. With about a lap to go, a rider came in super hard from the right side and crossed my front wheel. And I went down in a big old heap. Skinned my hip, pretty bad, good like 6 inches by 5 inches. Super bruised, skinned my arm up. And that's kind of how my night ended. It was pretty upsetting. After the crash, immediately my head went to, damn it, like, you know, 2 weeks from now I gotta perform at my best. Like, everything I put into the season is for this race. I got a week to get my head together and to get my body together, and next week it's go time. Regardless of what my body's telling me, I gotta make it happen. Cycling is hugely mental. Like, you just have to be incredibly mentally tough. You got to be able to handle the downs, you know, the crashes, the bad days, the bad performances, and you got to be able to get up and do it again the next day.
If I've learned anything, it's, you know, don't give up. I've seen Justin, you know, he's had those crashes, and he just jumps right back on the bike, and in spite of his wounds, he just keeps training. There's a part of Justin that there's the trainer Justin, and then there's the family Justin, and then there's the work Justin. And so it's like 3 different personalities. You've got the guy that likes to train and eat well and is very disciplined, and then you've got the guy that's, you know, he can be sensitive to my needs and he's there for me. And in our 7 years together, we've had a lot of losses, and he's been there with me through all of those losses, and he's been able to still train at the level that he trains at.
Tasha's always been really supportive. Obviously it's been a struggle, just the time commitment with cycling and everything that goes into it, and then couple that with being a firefighter where I'm gone 2-3 days at a time. I don't do much other than bike racing. I travel, but it's usually tied into training or racing. Like, Tasha and I went to Hawaii, and it was the best trip. Both of us had the best time. But for 8 days, I trained my face off.
I enjoy riding, I like training, but I don't know if I have the discipline or the desire that Justin has. I've watched him and I see what he does, and so much goes into being good and being a high performer like he is at his level. It doesn't just come with luck.
He sort of had a hard run-up coming into this Nationals with a really hard crash at his hometown race, the Tour de Nez. What most people see when they see the crash itself, they're looking at the road rash, and that's the damage. But all real racers know the road rash isn't the real damage. The damage is the bruise that happens underneath, the things that people can't see.
Let's do it! Get on! Get on! Get on! Get on!
I did some hard intervals on Tuesday before the road race, and I had nothing. Like, I was just extremely flat.
How are you feeling, buddy? Fucking dying, dude. Did you have to chase? Not having a good day. Everybody's dying. Bottles, guys.
With the injuries kind of in the forefront of my mind, didn't want to hit the deck again, wasn't feeling very aggressive. So I just kind of filtered, you know, mid-pack. And then we came out alongside that, just past that hill in the valley there, and the winds picked up and Mike's split the field and I was on the losing side. I was able to get back to the main group, but I had to burn a lot of matches doing it. And I just knew like then that I didn't have it. I didn't have what it was gonna take to hang.
Anything we can do?
No, just gotta ride it off.
All right, dude.
Water, please.
Sorry, man. Ride it off.
After the road race, I kind of went home and, you know, tried not to dwell on how bad I felt and how weak I was, because I know I've had plenty of off days, and usually that next day I'll come back and feel good again. So on Thursday, did my planned workout, and I just still had nothing, like super flat. I just didn't have the power that I normally do. So this is like weighing in my head. Went to the starting blocks and just kind of, you know, told myself, hey, this is it. This is what you prepared for. Who cares how you feel? It's in you. You know, you do have the legs to do this. Went off the blocks. First 10 minutes was going pretty fast, but the power was like, okay, you know, I kept having to lower my number. In my head, I was like, okay, 365, which originally I had wanted to do 385. And I was already at 365 at minute 10 and hurting. Oh man, this is not good. Made the turn about 10 minutes in, you know, kept plugging away, power kept dropping. You know, now I was in the 350s, 356. It's like, oh man, oh no, you know, it's not going good, not going good. But as I got closer to the turnaround, I'm looking at my speed. My speed was decent. It was like 31 miles an hour. I was like, okay. I mean, like, you may not have power and you may feel like crap, but maybe your power meter's off. So let's keep it positive.
Still averaged 31.6. Means he didn't slow down on the headwind section. Why slow down?
I knew where people were that I was worried about, and they were all going slower than I was by what I calculated.